This story began in a dirty, ran-down prison where they held the most violent criminals, the ones outcast from society without any chance of rehabilitation. There was one prisoner, prisoner 444. He claimed he was innocent of the crimes he had been convicted of. He had been accused of being responsible for the kidnapping and violations of 3 young girls who were never found. Witnesses say they saw him talking to the young girls, and they believed he lured them away with him. There was no real evidence, but a jury believed he was guilty. So now he sits in prison with a life sentence without any possibility of parole. He was hated by the other prisoners and the guards too. He was beat up, harassed, spit on, and set up by the guards alike. Even though he always said he was innocent, he was still shown no mercy. Out of fear, he began to fashion weapons out of whatever he could find. He grew bitter and angry because everyone always was trying to hurt him. He had no friends. One morning, he heard the chatter from the other inmates saying, today was his day. He even saw one of the guards snicker at the threatening comments the inmates made. By now, prisoner 444 wasn't afraid anymore. His fear turned to anger, and he was on a warpath. The first person on his hit list was the snickering guard. When he heard of his demise, this guard had the nerve to snicker. Now see, what y'all have to understand is, prisoner 444 had a job in prison. It was to keep the floors clean. So he had access to all sorts of chemicals used for cleaning. So his first step was he went to the gang leaders and told them he could sneak drugs in and he would give it to them if they would just leave him alone. They agreed, but not really. They just wanted to get the drugs first. Then they would continue to torment him, then eventually kill him. Prisoner 444 was no fool. He knew their plan all along. He even got the snickering guard in on it. He promised the guard that he would give him a cut if he allowed him to bring in the drugs. So, prisoner 444 reached out to his ex-girlfriend, the only person in the world who still believed in his innocence. And he told her if she didn't bring the drugs he needed, they would kill him. So she agreed, and she had no trouble bringing it in with the help of the prison guard. So when 444 finally got the drugs, He spiked them with a mixture of cleaning chemicals before he passed them off to the gang leaders. And before you know it, there were prisoners dropping like flies. Then the entire prison went into a lockdown. In all, 44 prisoners met their demise from the tainted drugs. The guard that helped bring the drugs in now wanted to silence prisoner 444. He didn't want his participation in this deed to get out. So he went to 444's cell to scare him into silence. But when he got there, he met with a different man. 444 was no longer the fearful prisoner. He was now a bold predator. And he attacked the guard, first by throwing bleach into his eyes, then gouging them out with his bare hands. The other guards heard the commotion, so they came to his rescue, and they beat 444 till he was unconscious. Then after he woke up, he freely told the warden how he brought the drugs in with the help of the guard, and how he spiked them and killed off a lot of his enemies. He laughed about it. He told how he had gave them the drugs to the gang leaders for distribution. So then the prison guard was brought up on charges. And now he was blind from the eye gouging. And he was sentenced to life in prison for his role in the death of the 44 inmates. The gang leaders who helped, they were also charged. They were moved to solitary where they would spend the rest of their lives. Meanwhile, prisoner 444 was sentenced to death by the electric chair. He didn't even care. Only thing he wished was that he could get all the people back on the outside that was responsible for his imprisonment. So on the day of his execution, when he was asked what he wanted for his last meal, he responded, "I want the blood of my accusers." And then, as they walked him down the hallway to meet his demise, prisoner 444 cursed and spit, and he had to be restrained by at least 10 officers in order to strap him in a chair. But before the switch was pulled, he was asked, did he have any last words? And he responded, "I will see you all in hell." Then they pulled the switch. The lights dimmed, and you could hear a slight murmur and smell an awful smell of flesh burning as he bled from his eyes, nose, and mouth. After it was over, they took his body to the prison morgue and they left him there. But what no one realized was that prisoner 444 wore a metal cross around his neck. That cross absorbed some of the the electrical current from the electric chair. It was just enough to stop his heart, but not quite. When they moved his body was under a blanket. The blanket gave a static shock. That static shock was just enough to restart his heart. His eyes opened and